Welcome to Behind the Business Trends Nooga Edition podcast. I'm your host, Tanisha Irvin, and this podcast spotlights spaces behind trendy consumer goods brands in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area. Powered by #Mall, the mobile shopping center, coming soon to a device near you. This podcast is sponsored by The Company Lab, the front door to entrepreneurship in the Chattanooga area. If your business needs help or needs to get connected, visit www.colab.co to learn more and schedule your first wayfinding meeting with a team member. Our venue sponsor for this episode is Chattanooga Cigar and Hookah Lounge, located at 1518 Market Street in downtown Chattanooga. For today's guest, we have founder and CEO of TrailDrops, Miss Meg Brasel. How are you today, Meg?
I'm good. How are you, Tanisha?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
So I look forward to learning more about you. Just tell me a little bit about where you're from.
Well, I grew up here. I grew up in Ottawa and then went away to college. I went to Earlham College in Indiana and spent 4 years there. Went out to Vancouver, Canada for about a year. I met my husband there. We went back to Cincinnati and I went to nursing school. Became a nurse midwife, which I still do work as a nurse midwife as well. We moved back to Chattanooga, got married, had 2 kids. They're 16 years old now, 2 boys. But about 5 years ago, I got interested in making food for our hiking trips. And my husband and I had always gone hiking even before we were married, and then, started taking the kids along when they were old enough to do it. So we would buy freeze-dried or dehydrated ingredients and put them together to make meals. But we would have to buy, kind of a large quantity and only use part of it. And it's expensive when you're buying in smaller quantities. And so I just started kind of trying to put things together to come up with meals. And I told my husband at one point that I think somebody would pay for this service. My original idea was to put together meal packs. So here, you're going out for a week. So here are your meals for a week. Here's your breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a week. So, I started with that business model and it's evolved some since then. But that was how I got started, was just kind of making for us.
Wow, what an incredible story. So I want to unpack all of that. I want to know more about what it was like growing up here in Chattanooga. I'm a native of Chattanooga as well. What was it like for you here? Did you enjoy living in Chattanooga?
I did until I became a rebellious teenager. And then it felt really too small. But yeah, I did. I went to St. Nicholas School in Brainerd, and my mom was a teacher there, and our classes were really small, and my friends were like my family. And, I love that. And then I went to GPS for high school, and that was good too. But yeah, Chattanooga started to feel a little claustrophobic at some point.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get out, and I did, and I loved it. I loved meeting new people. And, I didn't really think that I would ever come back. And it was the mid-90s when I graduated from high school. So it was really a lot of fun to go some other places and meet some people. But then my husband pointed out right before we got married that every time we visited Chattanooga, we always had fun. And by that point it was fun to see, old friends and, of course, my parents, and they still live here. So we just decided that this was going to be our home, and we've loved it.
Awesome. So growing up, did you ever imagine that you would be an entrepreneur?
I probably didn't even know what that meant. My dad owned a concrete company. He was an entrepreneur, so I had that model, but I remember him working so hard, from 12, 14-hour days, and in the summertime, probably even longer than that when there was more daylight, and then coming home at night and figuring plans. And I just remember him saying that if my brother or I ever wanted to go into the business, he would sell it first because it was such hard work to run your own business.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. I remember thinking that I wanted to be an architect, and I remember thinking that I wanted to be a lawyer. I was just kind of all over the place, but I really never thought I'd start my own business.
What did you end up majoring in school?
So I majored in anthropology and Japanese.
Nice.
When I was at Earlham. And then when I moved out to Vancouver, I had a high school friend that I had been living with, and she was pregnant. She had her first baby. She was seeing a midwife. and had a really good experience with her. And then about 6 months after I moved out to Vancouver, it just hit me. And I said, I want to be a midwife. That's what I want to do. I had never been a science person. But I wanted to do it. So I kind of looked into what I needed to do, and I needed to get my bachelor's in nursing and my master's in nursing. So we moved to Cincinnati, and I went straight through and did that.
Nice. That's a really rewarding, career field, I'm sure. I didn't have a midwife, but I had a doula, and I think it was an amazing experience. So, I salute everyone that's a part of that journey. So before we get into the business, give me one thing that was like one of your favorite memories of growing up in Chattanooga.
Well, the first thing that pops into my mind is actually a camping and hiking memory that we used to go out to Chilhowie in Cleveland. And it was perfect for kids because they had the regular campsites. You could car camp, just park your car, set everything up. They had a little lake that you could walk to. And then they had a waterfall that was a 1 mile hike. And it was super easy, except the very last part was steep. But we would go there like every year, just like with friends or family or extended family. And that was just kind of our place. And that was always special to get to go camping out there.
Nice, nice. So now let's get down to the business of TrailDrops. How long have you been in business?
So I started with my idea in 2015, and I took a class with Launch at the end of 2015, and then took another class with them in 2016. And that's when I kind of started coming up with my recipes and trying to figure out what I was going to do, how I was going to package and things like that. I think my first sale was in 2016, but my website and like kind of really the business launched in about 2017.
Okay, and I like your branding here with the trail. I see the drop, I see the valley, the mountains. What inspired you to create your brand?
Well, I have to give all credit for my logo to Gabby Blades with Blades Creative. She is amazing. And so she sat down with me and talked to me about my business. And we spent several different sessions going over ideas and sketches that she did until she came up with that. But I just think as a Tennessee company, we have mountains, we have water, and both of those things. I love mountains and I love water. And, I just love having this on here. The original idea or the original name of TrailDrops comes from when people are out hiking for days, weeks, months at a time, they can't carry all their food with them.
People hike for that long?
Yes. The Appalachian Trail, 6 months if you want to do the whole thing in one fell swoop. But they'll have mail drops is what they call it. So you'll send yourself packages, or your family will send you packages or something as you go along, so that when you come to the post office in Hot Springs, North Carolina, there's a package there with your name on it, and it has your next 5 days worth of meals. So I alluded earlier to kind of my original idea of a business model, and I thought that I would be doing this kind of hiker resupply on the trail. So I called it TrailDrops because it was going to be mail drops for hikers.
Okay. And so you mentioned that when you were growing up, you saw your dad as an entrepreneur working long nights, early mornings, and it kind of, turned you off to that idea. So now that you're an entrepreneur, what's your why? What keeps you motivated, keeps you getting up every morning and going hard for TrailDrops?
So, practically speaking, it's the orders coming in that I'm like, oh crap, I've got another order. But speaking from the heart, it's just been so much fun to do something that's completely outside of my wheelhouse. Yeah. Being in the medical field for almost 20 years now, I've had, I've never developed a website. I've never come up with a marketing plan. I've never done any of that. I've just kind of done my little part of my job. And this just introduced me to, a ton of new people, a ton of new tasks, and it's just one thing after another. When you're an entrepreneur, you're doing everything for yourself.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And there's never a time where you don't have something important that needs to be done. And I'm a doer. I'm really motivated, and I enjoy learning new things, and I have a lot of energy. And so I just kind of like always having that, okay, what's next?
Yeah. Do you remember your validation moments? Do you remember that moment when something happened, or, as you're launching your products, and you remember I've got something special here?
This meal, the angel hair pasta with red chili peanut sauce, it's like whenever people try it, they just rave about it. And that one, I got an order from a retailer today, and I think that the quantity order on that was 4 to 8 times the amount that they ordered of any other product. That's just far and away. So what people tell me about that product, that really is validating to me. And I think, how can I tweak every product to make it measure to what this one does? Like, what is the magic here? And can I replicate that other places too? So that's validating. It was really exciting as we got into retail stores to start to get reorders, anytime you have a repeat customer. Well, even, just individuals that reorder on the website, like that's always really validating to be like, okay, they liked it enough that they want it again. So,
yeah. So what's the message behind TrailDrops? What's the message behind your brand?
So our mission is to get people outdoors overnight. So food can be a real barrier to camping or backpacking because number one, if you're going to be out for more than 24 hours, you got to have something that won't spoil. It can't need refrigeration. It can't be too heavy. You don't want to carry liquids. You need something that's pretty easy, but it's got enough calories. So for people who want to get out but don't have a lot of experience, like thinking about all the different parts of that, I think sometimes it can be like, I don't know what to do for food. This is just too much. And then I think other people who, even if they do have a lot of experience being out, sometimes think, oh my gosh, it's Thursday. I'm wanting to leave tomorrow. I don't have time to go to the grocery store, put all this stuff together. So in either one of those situations, I think that TrailDrops is something that helps people get outdoors overnight. Like, okay, if I can handle the tent and the sleeping bag and whatever, I can grab my food and we can go.
Yeah, nice. You're motivating me. You're like, maybe I can, go camping overnight. I've got to get me some TrailDrops and I'll be okay. So this is your top seller, right? The angel hair pasta. What other products do you have?
So we have 2 other dinners. We have Cashew Curry, and Cashew Curry is kind of our vegetable heavy meal. It's got green beans, it's got peas, it's got carrots, it's got onions, and it is on a rice base, and it's got probably 6 or 8 different spices in it, a lot of curry and other things too. And then our other dinner is spicy beans and rice. And so that is definitely a bestseller for kids. It's got cheese powder and it's got butter powder, and it's just it's kind of like a mac and cheese kind of cheese, like a Kraft mac and cheese kind of, really tangy cheddar powder. And so it's got beans and rice and some other things in it. And that one's real popular with kids.
Nice. And tell me about the breakfast items.
So for breakfast, we have 3 oatmeals, and they're all really similar other than a little bit different kinds of flavoring. Like we have a cherry vanilla oatmeal that has vanilla powder in it. We have an apple cinnamon oatmeal that has a little more cinnamon than the rest. And then we have a blueberry oatmeal. So 3 different fruits.
Okay, so walk me through it. I'm new to camping. I just need my TrailDrops. I can make a fire, boil some water, and then what?
You could just take a camp stove. You could get a little stove that turns onto a little propane
like
propane
a burner
tank.
Type thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have a little propane tank that screws onto the bottom. You turn a thing, it releases some gas. You hit it with a lighter and and it's got a little rack on the top that your pot will sit on. So you can have water boiling in like 3 minutes.
All right.
And then you tear the top off the bag. There's a little zipper in here. So you tear the top off, you open your zipper out, you pour your water in. And then you zip it back closed and just kind of shake it and give it about 10 minutes to reconstitute. And then you can eat it right out of the bag, or you can pour it into a bowl.
Okay, look at that. Nice. Okay. So who are your target consumers? You said definitely people that hike overnight. Do you have that like as an avatar? Some people can really narrow down who their target audience is. Do you know what that consumer looks like?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think that it's people who are like late 20s to mid 40s, and people who are doing like 2 to 5 day trips. And it's people who are, so the dinners are $11 per bag and the breakfasts are $8 per bag. And this is where the plan to resupply the thru hikers fell apart, is because typically your person who's going out on the Appalachian Trail for 6 months is somebody who's like in their early to mid 20s. Well, they don't have they're not spending $11 a day on dinner.
Yeah.
And I think that was one place where that fell apart. But who's ended up being my customer are people who are typically professionals who are working during the week. They want to go out either on a vacation or for the weekend, and they're good with laying down $11 for dinner or $8 for breakfast to get a restaurant quality meal when they're out on the trail. So it's ended up, and I do have families that'll buy, for the kids and the adults, families of 4 and 5 and that kind of thing who'll buy, or sometimes it's just a single person going out with friends.
So what sets your brand apart from your competition, from your competitors? What would you say separates you?
So one of the main things is that we don't have any preservatives other than salt and sugar. Not all of our ingredients are organic, but a lot of them are. And everything is small batch made. And so we don't have, like when you get this meal, you're getting the same thing every time. You're getting the same amount of jalapenos. You're getting the same amount of onions. It's not mixed and then, dumped in from a larger canister. It's all small batch made, which does slow us down and is one of my challenges as I'm looking at scaling. Like, how am I going to go from being able to make dozens of bags every day to being able to make hundreds of bags every day? But I don't have orders for hundreds of bags every day right now, so it's okay, and I think that's another thing that I've learned as an entrepreneur is that you take your challenges as they come. I don't need to worry about something until I need to worry about something. But at this point, the way that we're doing it, it's working well. The meals taste good. They're selling well. So that's what we're doing.
Nice. Have you received any achievements so far? Awards or honorable mentions for TrailDrops?
I've won or placed in a couple of different pitch contests for my products with launch and collab. But the meals itself, I don't think I've won anything with my meals.
Okay, so it was just kind of like the brand concept, the concept of it.
Yeah, the business concept and what we do and do we have a market and that kind of thing.
All right. What would you say are qualities needed for running your business successfully? What do you need to make sure that you stay on top of in order for your business to be successful?
I think that to some degree you have to be a perfectionist. I think
for the recipes, right? Because you have to be consistent.
Yeah, I think that you have to demand excellence of yourself and of anybody who's working for you. You have to know that every single product you put out on the shelf is something that you would want, your top potential investor to buy. Everything has to be good when it goes out. So I think that is important. I think that staying organized and just kind of being able to keep a bunch of different projects going in your brain at the same time. Like I mentioned before, you've got to know what you're doing with marketing. And I think the projects turn on and off too. Like I'll get on a little marketing jag for a while and then I won't do anything with marketing for a while. But to just kind of keep all these balls in the air and have a vision of what it's taking to move your business forward at that time. And no matter what it is, solving that problem that gets you over whatever hurdle you're at.
What is something that you know now that you wish you had told yourself when you first launched?
I didn't know how much time it was going to take up. And it may be good that I didn't know that. I think, my business is kind of like my kids. The longer it's with me, the more I love them, So, if somebody had told me how much work it was going to take, I don't know that I really would have done it before I was so invested in it. I did have a period of time a couple of years ago where I decided I was going to sell the business. I had gotten to the point where I wasn't doing the things that got me into the business in the first place, which was the hiking and just the weekend, fun trips and stuff, because my weekends were spent making the meals. But I also was not getting enough orders that I was making a profit. And it just I was like, why am I doing this? And I had tried to get permitted for retail. And I had run into hurdles and really just roadblocks with that. The Tennessee Department of Agriculture was who eventually did permit me. And I was the first dehydrated food business that they had ever permitted.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. But they didn't know exactly what they were doing. And they were fully transparent about that. And they just said, we need you to pass this test, basically. Okay, good. Now how about this test? And it just felt endless. And I just gave up, really. And then I talked to a friend of mine who had been a launch teacher, Marco Perez. And I said, Marco, I want to sell the business. I need help valuing the business. I need to help figuring out how do I put a business for sale. So he helped me get that information together. And I did have it for sale for a short period of time. And then he contacted me and he said, if you haven't sold this business by April, I want to talk to you. And so it turned into a partnership. He came on board and he has a lot of business experience. And he said, I will get TrailDrops permitted for retail. And I said, okay, do that. Great. And he did. He just, he plugged along with the Department of Agriculture until it was done. And that was really the big turning point for the business, because at that point I wasn't relying on orders of $20 here and $60 there. I was getting orders for $1,000 worth of product.
So that took a lot of weight off of your shoulders, right?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't do it. Like, I was done. And then when he did that, I was like, okay, and he's actually pulled back some. He was way more involved than I was for a period of time. And then once he got us over that hurdle, it was like, okay. So it's been really a lot of fun to just be able to go back to getting orders and figuring out how to scale to produce those orders. We really have come up with some good tricks, and Collab has been amazing. I took a class with them recently. It was like a accelerator program for consumer product goods. And they hooked me up with some really good mentors. One of them was a woman who used to work for McKee. And so she has a lot of business bringing consumer goods to market. And so she helped me with just things that when she told me, I was like, why didn't I think of that? Like, for one thing, with my oatmeals, instead of, every time I make them, there's a certain amount of instant oats and there's a certain amount of regular old-fashioned oats. And she said, well, why? It's a 50-50 ratio. She said, why not just make a big bucket of 50-50 and then you scoop once instead of scooping twice? And it's like, duh, but to have somebody come in like that, and she had probably 10 other things that she taught me just in the period of about an hour and a half that really have helped me with scaling my production. But what that getting permitted for retail did was take that part that I just couldn't figure out and get me past it so that I could go back to what I knew and just start working from there.
That's a nice story of of partnerships and also having a business mentor, how that can really just mean the world to you, because you could have gave up,
Yes.
but look at you now.
Yep.
You're doing great things. You mentioned Collab. I want to give a huge shout out to them. They are our sponsor. This podcast is sponsored by the company Lab, the front door to entrepreneurship in the Chattanooga area. If your business needs help or needs to get connected, visit www.collab.co to learn more and schedule your first wayfinding meeting with a team member. And also want to give a shout out to our venue sponsor. We're here at 1518 Market Street in downtown Chattanooga. We're inside the Chattanooga Cigar and Hookah Lounge, so make sure you visit them as well. So I want to talk about a special deal that you're going to offer for our guests today. Before we get into that, how much does your TrailDrops packaging sell for? Is this the dinner?
This is the dinner. This is the dinner portion. And if you've been backpacking all day, it is what you will want to eat. Like, it's I think it's 710 calories. So it's a lot of calories.
That is a lot.
But if you've been backpacking all day, then that's what you want.
Right?
Yeah. So that is, it's $11 for all the dinners. And they're all like 600 to 800-ish calories. If you were going to, like go on a 3-mile hike or something and eat that at the end of the day, then you would maybe want to share that with somebody. And in fact, you asked earlier something that sets us apart. On some of the bigger, like more commercial, large scale brands, you'll see that they'll put out a package like this and they'll put that it's 2 servings. And from the beginning, we were like, no, if you're really hiking, like that's a serving. So, so those are our dinner prices, is $11. And then our breakfast prices, our breakfasts are about 600 calories each, I think 560 or something like that. And those are $8 each for breakfast.
Okay. And what does the future of your product look like?
Well, I really want to have another dinner. I really would like to have 5 dinners actually, and I have 3 right now. So I had a 4th dinner that I just was kind of not loving. And so I just went ahead and pulled that off. I'm working now on developing something that's more of like a cream-based dinner, like a fettuccine Alfredo type of thing, just along the lines of a cream base. So that's going to be one of my projects over the winter. The great thing about my business is that I get kind of a respite from like December, January, February. I'm not getting nearly as many orders. So I kind of have this downtime where I can regroup and figure out what do I want to bring to market for the spring. So I would really love to have at least one new dinner by the spring. And eventually I'd like to offer some breakfast besides oatmeals, but oatmeals don't sell nearly as well as dinners. So I'm really just kind of focusing on dinners for now.
Okay. And if we have a entrepreneur in the same field as you, the same, consumer products, that's trying to get into the same industry is what I'm trying to say, what advice would you have to him or her?
So I really would tell them to call Collab first.
Yes.
They are so generous. This program that I just went through was worth its weight in gold. And it, in a way, it probably required about 3 hours a week of just like regular meetings, and then outside meetings with mentors were extra. But there was so much. I mean, when I would go to these classes, they were Zoom classes, but when I was in these classes, I would just be, writing and writing and writing. And then I would know, I would be like, well, I'm not going to do all this. So let me circle that and let me star that so I don't forget to go back to that. And that's another thing that during my next few months over the winter, I'm just going to be like going down those lists. And that was just, Tim Moore, Mike Robinson, they were just, anything that you needed, they would be like, we'll figure out how to, hook you up with somebody for that. So I would definitely take advantage of that. Launch is the same way. I have never worked with the small business, what are they, right there on the corner of Cherokee?
Yeah.
Small Business Development Center. But I know people who have, and just to take advantage of those kinds of resources, there are so many opportunities to learn. And entrepreneurs, one thing I've loved about this community is that everybody helps each other. So if I have gone through a situation before and figured that out, or somebody's helped me figure it out, and now you're in that situation, then I'm like, oh, here's what you do. And it's just a really generous and open group of people. So it's been fun to just be a part of that community. So that would be my best advice, is to just engage. Some classes are free, some classes you pay for, but I've rarely taken a class that's cost more than $100. Just engage, meet people, ask questions, and then just be willing to, check off your to-do list, keep pushing forward.
That's good. That's good. So where can we find your products right now?
So they are sold on my website, which is TrailDrops.com. And then in retail stores in Chattanooga, they are at at Rock Creek North Shore. And then they may be still at Rock Creek Hamilton Crossing. I was there the other day and I didn't see any, but they may have just sold out, or I don't know if they don't carry them there anymore. I'm not sure. They're also at Rock Creek in Cleveland, Rock Creek in Franklin, and then they're also at REI in Chattanooga.
Okay.
And then Knoxville and Pigeon Forge too.
Nice. And just for tuning in and watching us today, Meg is giving a special deal, 15% off using the special code #mall. Again, 15% off using the special code #mall, just for tuning in and watching with us today. Okay, before we go, Meg, give us a fun fact. What's your favorite place to travel?
Well, I'm going to say, since we're talking about hiking, backpacking, meals, my favorite place that I've backpacked was not this past summer, but the one before. We went to North Cascades National Park in Washington State, and it was amazing.
It sounds amazing.
The mountains are huge, and I thought I was in good shape until I got there. And I was like, I had it all planned out. Like, here's what we're doing every day on our hikes. And after day one, I was like, we're revising that. We can't do that every day. But that was beautiful. And then I went to Costa Rica. My son is in boys choir, and I got to go as the medical chaperone a couple of years ago. And that's just got to be about the most beautiful place I've ever seen in my life.
Wow. So Meg, I want to thank you so much for allowing me to interview you today. I've enjoyed learning about you and also about your product, TrailDrops. I look forward to seeing you again in the future and also buying your products when I decide to go camping with my crew.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the interview.
Likewise. So thank you for tuning in to Behind the Business Trends Nooga Edition podcast. Follow us on IG and Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos like this. I'm your host, Tanisha Irvin, and I will see you next time.